UFC 314 goes down this weekend as Alexander Volkanovski takes on Diego Lopez for the vacant featherweight championship. I will give you a betting preview of who I think is going to win on the main card. I'll give you a fight or two from the prelims that I like, but mostly this is going to be focused on the main card because after all, if you're paying $80 for this card, you probably want to make some, if not more, of that money back. I will try to help you with this. This is a precursor to all of this. Just know that if you use this information and you do end up betting with it and you do lose, we lost together. Take it for what it's worth. All right. This card is $80. The price on pay-per-view just keeps going up and up and up. And I think it's worth splitting it. I don't think this is... It's very rare that I'll say a card is worth $80. I think this card is good, though. I think it is good. I will likely be heading out to a bar that has it for free, but I do think it is worth getting a couple of buddies together and maybe splitting it. It is tough for me to justify you sitting in your house just paying $80 for a card that's not, UFC 300. That card was worth $80 and then some. But, all right, let's get to the main card for this one, and it kicks off with Nikita Krylov taking on Dominic Reyes. Now, Nikita Krylov is on a nice win streak right now, really nice win streak. And Dominic Reyes is on a 2-fight win streak. He ended up beating Anthony Smith in his last one, which unfortunately I think at this point isn't that great of a win, just because Anthony Smith is kind of checked out. But before that, he got back in the win column against Dustin Jacoby. So 2-fight win streak for Dominic Reyes. And remember, this is a guy that I think a lot of people, myself included, think that he beat John Jones, even though it didn't go his way on the judges' scorecards, but certainly looked like it. But in that fight, it just seems like he lost something because he ended up going on that wicked losing streak. Didn't help the fact that his next fight, I believe, was against Yuri Prochazka, who ended up beating the brakes off of him. But you got Dominic Reyes back in the win column, and you're taking on a guy that I just flat out think has faced better competition. And I think that this is a step up for Dominic Reyes to see, okay, is he actually back? Or is he now just kind of that gatekeeper-ish guy? So when you look at Nikita Krylov's win streak currently, he's on a 3-fight win streak, but it's very, very different. Now, he's faced Alexander Gustafsson to start it off. Alexander Gustafsson at this point is kind of washed. After that, he beats Volkan Oezdemir, who is that lightweight gatekeeper, in my opinion. He's a lightweight Jeff Neal-ish kind of fighter where you figure out, okay, is this guy the real deal or not? Oh, let's give him Oezdemir. And he ended up beating him in a unanimous decision. And then his last fight out, he ended up doing a triangle choke on Ryan Spann to end up winning that one. I think Nikita Krylov is just a better overall fighter. And I think he's probably faced better, more recent competition. That's not to say that Dominic Reyes can't win this fight. I mean, I was impressed with Dominic Reyes' last outing, but as I said, he faced a guy that I think is just checked out, and he's clearly on his way out. Anthony Smith has announced he will be retiring after his next fight. But a large part of me hopes that this is a fight where Dominic Reyes wins, because I think the lightweight realm is better with Dominic Reyes in it, fighting at a high level. And I hope he gets in that win column. I hope he proves me wrong. In this instance, though, I'm going to have to go with Nikita Krylov. After that, you have a newcomer to the UFC, but not a newcomer to you MMA fans. Patricio Pitbull, I believe a former 2-division champion at Bellator, but if I'm wrong, I'm sure the comment section will call me a casual. But definitely a guy that had held the featherweight title in Bellator. He's going to be taking on former interim champion Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez is one of the more frustrating fighters for me because he never fights. He never fights. And he's exciting. Like, I enjoy watching this dude fight. But to me, he's the featherweight Bo Nickel. But worse. His last fight was, I believe, February 2024. What are you doing? Don't tell me you haven't been offered fights. You have. And then the thing is, if he wins this Patricio Pitbull matchup, I'm sure he'll be calling for the winner of the main event. He'll be calling for the champion, for Alexander Volkanovski or for Diego Lopez, even though he's very, very inactive. But that's just me on my soapbox. I do think Yair Rodriguez takes this one, though. I think that Bellator guys coming in here, they have had success. Like Michael Chandler had immediate success beating Dan Hooker. But I think at this point, Yair Rodriguez is a really, really tough fighter to figure out for a lot of people. And I think trying to mimic that stylistically in the gym is going to be difficult. Now, look, Yair Rodriguez gets a lot of credit, and Lord only knows the broadcast will point out the knockout that he had against the Korean Zombie, and you forget that the Korean Zombie won 4 minutes and 58 seconds of that entire round. He had won to that point 24 minutes and 58 seconds that entire fight. Like, he was beating the hell out of Yair Rodriguez, but the creativity of Yair Rodriguez ended up getting him that win when he just randomly throws that elbow up, knocks him out. So look, he's a creative fighter. I think he is, at this point, though, better than Patricio. I think he will end up taking this, and the betting odds are in the favor of Yair. I believe he's like a 190 favorite in this one. Not overly surprised. I mean, when you look at some of the guys that Patricio Pitbull has lost to, they're kind of washed UFC fighters. And now you've got a guy that has been sitting on the sidelines for over a year, should be pretty fresh relatively. It's going to be difficult. The next fight on the card is a very, very heated fight. Bryce Mitchell taking on Gene Silva. These two have been going at it left and right in the lead up to this one. Gene Silva is oozing confidence. Bryce Mitchell is trying this like God thing. I don't know where God was when Josh Emmett's right hand connected with his face, but he certainly wasn't in the octagon defending Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell's going to do Bryce Mitchell things. He's going to get out there. He's going to give crazy eyes while holding up a Bible, and he is going to attempt to inflict a lot of damage on Gene Silva, who is riding a 12-fight win streak into this one, and his last fight was hell of impressive. This isn't, I don't think, the best fight for Bryce Mitchell in terms of people are going to focus on the fact that he was knocked out into the shadow realm by Josh Emmett. You forget that he's already fought since then, and he won that fight. Granted, it was against Cron Gracie, who will just pull guard the entire time. And Cron Gracie did that and then got his face elbowed off by Bryce Mitchell. But the recovery, the fight against Josh Emmett should not affect him at all in this fight. I am a Bryce Mitchell fan in terms of what he does in the octagon. I think he's a dipshit outside of it. I think he is a prime example of like, let's actually put money into the education system, because he's a moron. To the nth degree. And I would never say that to his face because, that'd be dangerous for my health. But he is the epitome of what you think of when you probably hear of like Arkansas Hick. That's him. But he is extremely talented. And Gene Silva hasn't gone to a decision since he was on the Contender Series. Now, he's gone to the third round. He's gone deep in the third round. But primarily, he's gone in the third rounds where he hasn't had to really struggle in those fights. Bryce Mitchell, I think, is going to get this one on the ground and use his grappling and wrestling and end up using his just overall ground game to put Gene Silva into a stranglehold. Would I like to see Gene Silva knock out Bryce Mitchell at this point? Yeah, I would. The stuff on his podcast was just like, dude, you're turning me off from being a fan. But I think overall, Bryce Mitchell's going to do enough in this fight on the feet to eventually get it to the ground and submit Gene Silva and end up winning this one. And then he's going to shout out Arkansas and ask for camo shorts and praise his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It's going to be awkward. Speaking of awkward, we get to the co-main event, the most cringy fight of the year so far. Patty the Batty Pimblett taking on Michael Jason Tatum Chandler, because he's as corny as Jason Tatum. And I hate this matchup so much because this matchup means that I am going to get Michael Chandler screaming for Conor McGregor and then screaming cringy things like, "If you can!" He is corny as hell. No one seems to notice it. He's more corny than Colby Covington at this point because that act is tired and it's contrived and everybody knows it. But there's nothing more corny than Michael Chandler. And I hate this fight because I'm going to end up getting that because Michael Chandler's going to beat the piss out of Patty Pimblett. Patty Pimblett's last outing was extremely impressive against Bobby Green, but this is a massive step up for him. Massive. And I think that people want Patty to be Connor because he does ooze confidence. Obviously, he's from England, even though Connor's Irish. Like, you want this dude to be the next Connor because obviously Connor is checked out and he's probably never going to fight again. You're not going to get that though. I think there's levels to this game. I think that Patty's going to find that out, and I think he's going to get absolutely destroyed. And I hate it because, as I said, I'm going to get a cringy fucking post-fight press conference or post-fight interview. I was pissed off last fight that I had to listen to Michael Chandler. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, thank God he lost. I don't have to hear his cringy post-fight presser. And yet we ended up having a post-fight interview anyway. He's interesting. He's an interesting cat because, like, he'll end up getting his face chewed off by, much better fighters and seemingly stand in the octagon and smile about it, not realizing you're getting your ass beat. But, yeah, it's gonna be a bloodbath. I think it's gonna be a very one-sided fight. I don't think there's any path for victory for Paddy Pimblett. I see Michael Chandler finishing him. And after that, as I said, we're going to get the Conor McGregor contrived call out. Get your house in order. Like, at this point, it's desperation to the nth degree. It's kind of sad. It's pathetic. It's like me constantly tweeting Sydney Sweeney asking for a Qdoba date. Not happening, dude. Like, give it up. But yet, here we are. And now, finally, to the main event fight. You've got Diego Lopez taking on Alexander Volkanovski. I'll make this one quick. I think Volk takes it. I think Diego Lopez has been really, really impressive in his time in the UFC. I think he's been great. And I think that Volkanovski at this point is... I think people are sleeping on him. I think people forget how good Volk is. I think... Wire fell out of my mic. Where was I? Yeah, I think that people have slept on Volk. I think that Volk is still one of the top two featherweights. I think Diego Lopez is really good. I just think that Volk is better. I think the Volk has a more well-rounded approach. But I do also think that if Diego Lopez ends up winning this fight, then Volk is like, that's it. That's it for Volk. I think that his time in the sun is over. I don't like the fact that this fight is for a vacant title, because to me it's kind of like when John Jones had to vacate at 205. It's kind of like who else? There was more recent one where you sat back and you go like, we know who the real champion is, and it's not this dude. So it does kind of suck that whoever wins this fight, you still sit back and you go, Ilia Topuria is the best lightweight or featherweight if he wants to be, but he's moving up. So I think Volk takes this one. If you want a low-key fight that I actually like on this card, let's take a look real quick. I like Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I like that fight. It's going to be a typical fight for Sean Woodson where he comes out and the announcers are going to go, man, his hands look fast. And you're going to sit back and you're going to go, why don't they just kick his legs because they're like twigs. Dan Ige, though, is going to, I think, end up connecting on one that is going to put Sean Woodson to sleep. Sean Woodson's going to have the hand speed. Dan Ige is going to have the power. I'm going to take Dan Ige in this one. I also think Dan Ige has just faced harder competition. So I like that one. Anything else I like in here? Julian Erosa and Darren Elkins is gross. That is disgusting. I hate the UFC for putting that fight together because I will watch it. It'll be like the Sixers this season. I'm going to watch that and hate myself for it. Chase Hooper actually and Jim Miller's a very interesting one because Chase Hooper went out there his last go-round and faced another UFC vet in Clay Guida and ended up winning. And now he faces Jim Miller, who's in a similar situation. UFC vet. I kind of like Chase Hooper in this one. I don't know what the betting odds are, but I kind of like Chase Hooper in this one. His stand-up game has improved drastically from where it was when he first started in the UFC. And I think that he's going to be a problem when he eventually takes Jim Miller's back. Doesn't mean Jim Miller ain't it. Like, he's got great ground game, and obviously that guillotine is real. But you've seen the evolution of Chase Hooper at this point, where I think this is a really good fight for him, and I like him in this one. I don't necessarily think I'm going to be betting a ton on that fight because of the fact that Jim Miller has ended up facing, young guys before and humbling them. But I'm leaning towards Chase, especially after the last go round. Faced a very similar fighter in Clay Guida, guy with grappling, ground game, all that. Didn't matter. Chase Hooper ended up coming out on top. And then anything else on this card that I do end up liking? No, the rest of the prelims are kind of gross as I take a look at it. Kind of gross. All right, well, that will do it. There's your UFC 314 preview. To recap, I like Nikita Krylov. I like Yair Rodriguez. I like Bryce Mitchell. I don't like Michael Chandler, but I do think he's going to win this fight very easily. And then I like Alexander Volkanovski.